Guys, it's the Broken Brain, and I promise there's no math in today's episode. There's only two math terms. I'm going to be talking about addition versus subtraction as we apply it to the science of human change. That's why we're here, right? We're all trying to be healthier and better peoples. By the way, you're listening to The Broken Brain. That's why you're listening, is because wanting to understand how to be gooder and better and happier, healthier peoples, right? To understand how people work in our minds and in our psychology. So every Monday, of course, this being one of them, I bring you a short Monday mental health tip. And today I want to give you a concept that I'd like you to wrap your mind around and take it and run with it and see what you think of it. So the concept is addition versus subtraction, okay? Okay, so this concept applies to whenever we're trying to make some kind of change in our lives. Are we trying to add something or are we trying to take something away? This is the concept. When you're approaching something and you want to change, let's say some bad habits, and on an extreme scale, we could say addiction. I apply this all the time to addiction treatment. Do I tend to overfocus on subtraction? Okay, so when I look at taking away the bad habit, I'm eating too many chocolate-covered cinnamon bears. So I'm trying to remove the amount of chocolate-covered cinnamon bears from my life. Now, first of all, that sounds depressing because who wants less chocolate-covered cinnamon bears in their life? Come on, let's be honest. And second of all, as I'm trying to get rid of my crippling chocolate-covered cinnamon bear habit because of all the cost and because of all the gummy little red cinnamon stuff that's stuck in my teeth and all the social implications, everybody, I've been stealing all their chocolate-covered cinnamon bears and walled up in a little cabin up in the hills with nothing but a bunch of chocolate-covered cinnamon bears. This is sounding like a pretty good weekend, actually, as long as you have access to like Netflix or something. So my natural tendency with a bad habit, or if we want to change something by not doing something anymore, we focus on stopping the thing. And I'm going to say very, very, very occasionally, and not very often, that works okay. In other words, there are times where it's just like, I'm going to stop doing this, and I just stop doing it, and it works. Great. Well, that's not what we're talking about, because that one doesn't need a lot of follow-up, I guess. But generally speaking, what we find is when we try to stop doing something, especially something that is habitual, addictive, compulsive, anything like that, and we just focus on stopping it, the two big problems are, number one is we're not really addressing the underlying cause, okay? That's not so much the topic of today, but that is always there. And that's going to get into like your basic, therapy and processing and challenging and just all of those things we are trying to get at the underlying, usually emotional underpinnings to why we do a behavior. Okay. That's very important. So, but the other thing that's bad about it is that when we focus on subtracting something, we are focused on the thing. Think about math. When you're taking 10 away from 20, you're focused on 10 and 20 and the result of 10 going to, I told you there'd be no math today. So basically you're focusing on what you're taking away, and whatever you focus on, you are thinking about, right? So if we're trying to stop something that's bad or do less of something, infinitely better approach is to say, what are some things I could bring into my life that either I can focus on those things instead of this thing, or maybe even more directly, sometimes I can bring in things that will actually crowd this other thing out, okay? So an example of that would be if you have an issue with alcohol, for example, if you're able to add some things into your life that are distracting you from day-to-day cravings. So instead of sitting there and thinking, I'm going to fight my cravings, I got all these skills to fight my cravings. That's good. But if I'm going to just go, that's it, I'll just go into my day with all these skills to fight my cravings, and if I give in to my cravings, I'll feel terrible, and if I don't, I'll feel good, and that's it. It's not that it's bad, it's just not as strong as it could be. So I might say, let me add some activities that I'm going to do. Usually they'd be pro-social, healthy activities. In the case of something like an addiction, basically they need to start with just not being drinking. That's it, right? That's the first thing they need to be. And so even if they're not the healthiest, if I can binge TV shows and I'd rather be out there exercising, but binging TV shows for whatever reason keeps me from doing the bad habit, binge TV shows. That's where we're at. Okay. So we're adding something that could be distracting from it. Now, the other part then, even a little better, is if we can add something that counteracts it. So let's take the drinking, for example. Let's say if I really enjoy game playing, with friends. Maybe I like getting online and doing video game playing with friends, or maybe I enjoy RPGs or board games, or maybe I enjoy Sudoku, or something like that. Maybe there's some habit that I already enjoy that I'd like to do some more of, and I enjoy it a lot more when I am clear-headed. I recognize that most of those things I just said, people do them when they're intoxicated as well, but maybe I don't. Okay. Or maybe I want to do some more hiking. Maybe I want to take a trip or do something that I'm going to be driving for, or I want to go to a museum. I don't know, whatever. What I'm suggesting is I'm adding things. And if the things are, well, I really do like those things more when I am not intoxicated, I already, even without having worked on anything about my habits, probably wouldn't take a drink before I go do this thing. So if I'm doing more of this thing, it's crowding out, and this is the concept, it's crowding out the less healthy behavior. So in that sense, adding is more effective oftentimes in changing behaviors than just subtracting the behavior is. Many people talk about replacing an addiction with something else. That is, I would say, a version of this. I find for some reason the concept, as I've worked with people, the concept of replacing is a good concept. When we make it about this addition, though, it breaks the tie even more. It's not so much, okay, I would get drunk tonight, but I got to do something else instead of getting drunk tonight. That's replacing, right? I think it's a little more powerful to say, what can I do tonight? What do I want to do tonight? Leave drinking out of it entirely. I know that I'd like to drink. Sure, I get it. I'm trying not to. I get it. I know that's there. But what do I want to do tonight at all? Well, just what can I add? And I, for some reason, that seems to open people's minds up a little bit more. So it's some terminology that you can roll around in your mind and see if it's helpful. And say, what do I want to add? I have this thing I've been trying to avoid, or this thing I've been trying not to do that's bad for me, a bad habit kind of thing. So now let's flip it. Here's the other thought. What if there's something I want to do more of that is a good, healthy thing? Okay. So I look at adding that into my life. Now, here's the funny thing. I think sometimes we over-focus on the adding of something good as well. So if I'm looking at saying I want to add something more into my life, that's great. And we do need to focus on actually getting it done, right? But sometimes I think we can also benefit from looking at it the other way around and say, are there things that I have in my life that are crowding out the good thing that I would like to bring in? Okay. So I think you'll see these are just two sides of the same thing. If I look and say I would like to go for walks more often in my life, well, there is something I'm probably doing with the time that I am going to need to go for walks. I'm probably doing something during that time. Even if I'm not thinking about it, I am doing something with that time. And so if I look at that, I may not be leaving a lot of space in my life for adding a walk. Let's say if I want to add a few walks a week, well, then I need some time. And so I need to actually look around and say, is there something I could subtract? And maybe, this is the hard part, is sometimes the subtraction in this case where I'm trying to get a new good habit, the subtraction isn't just bad habits. Sometimes it's like I get home from work and I pick up some groceries on the way and I, feed the dog and I do the dishes and I polish all my shoes like we all do every day with all of our wingtips and Oxfords. Maybe I've got to do all my laundry and change the sheets and clean the baseboards in my house. All of these daily chores that we all do. So when you do all these really good things, and some of those good things, by the way, also might be things that you are also important, spending time with the family, preparing a healthy meal, all that kind of stuff. So some of those things, if I am going to find a time, right, then I might need to subtract something a little bit. So here's the basic idea. Looking in terms of addition and subtraction, and if you're feeling stymied by either trying to start a good behavior or you're trying to stop a bad behavior, and you feel like it's just not working, ask yourself, am I focusing on adding something right now, or am I focused on subtracting something right now? And if you can figure out which one you mostly are doing, maybe try to mix it up. Ask yourself that other question. Do I need to subtract something in order to make room for this good thing? Do I need to add something to push this bad thing out? And it's a concept that hopefully you can put to use when you are trying to change what you're doing. So I'd love to hear if anybody gets a chance to apply this, or maybe you're doing similar things, or you have thoughts about this. I'm always open to hear that kind of feedback. I like to know what's actually helpful to people, of course. So feel free to hit me up at dwighthurst@gmail.com or go to dwighthurst.com/support to give me any feedback you want, or if there's other tips that you'd like to share with people, I'm happy to help that as well, or just any time that there's topics you want to hear on the podcast or any questions that you have. I'm always eager to hear. A quick plug, we are in the midst of September, and September, this month's charity of focus is Horses of Hope of Isabella, Puerto Rico, and it's horsesofhopepr.org. If you want to go there and find out more about this cool organization, they provide equine therapy and experiences with horses that are therapeutic and healing for people with disabilities, and also people who have experienced trauma and are working and processing through that trauma. They work very hard to make this type of therapy accessible to people, which many times it is not accessible to a lot of people because things with horses can tend to cost a lot of money. And so they do take in donations, and they do other events to raise awareness, and also to raise funds to help people get access to low or no cost access to these cool experiences. And having known people over the years who've benefited from getting to work with horses for their mental health and just going through lots of different things, it's a cool thing that they're doing, and I'd encourage you to check them out. horsesofhopepr.org. As always, if you decide to become a Patreon donor to The Broken Brain, 50% of your donation will go to whatever charity that was the highlighted charity in the month of which you joined, and that'll be as long as you're a paying member. If you go to my website, you can also find lists of the charities that we have sponsored so far. I try to throw one up there every time the month ends, so they're always there. If for any reason you want to change or shift and have your donation go out to a different one, you can just hit me up through the contact form or email me and let me know. I'm always happy to do that for those of you that are contributing. Or, as always, since they're up there, with links, you can always go there and directly donate and, tweet or X or Facebook or Instagram share, their links and their sites as well with people. They're all, really good organizations. Thanks so much for listening, and talk to y'all soon.